Hey, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about discipline, chores, allowance, all those things and more. This friendship. So yes, I figured let's have this chat, y'all. Let's do a little chit chat about parenthood and what does that look like for me when it comes to those layers of as my kids are getting older. I have a 7-year-old and I have a 2.5-year-old, and what do we do? How do we feel about discipline, chores, and allowance? And how does that all tie in within our homeschooling lifestyle? So first, with discipline, it has been a journey, to say the least. It has been a growing journey for me and my husband to really figure out what works and what works for our family and what works for our children. It's not supposed to look like anyone else's. It took a lot of us having to course correction and us having to literally lay down the generational curses and say we're not going to walk in that way anymore. And that was really difficult for us because I grew up with a very strong-willed family, a very strong-willed mother who I say what I say and I said it the first time and get it together. And my husband's was a little bit different growing up in the foster system. So we just really had very different upbringings, and as well as how we handle discipline. And so when it came time to us to have children, we really had to walk through this with a blindfold on. And some things we had to do course correction, like I said, where we had to remove the things that we kept doing that were not okay for us to do to our children. That was never necessarily okay for us, but our parents were just doing what they thought was best. And so the first thing for me that I had to lay down and my husband had to lay down was no more counting to our children. Yes, that whole, hey, I told you, don't let me count to 5. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, no more of that. And that was kind of hard. We did it with our oldest and she was receptive to it very quickly. I didn't even have to count to 2. She would respond. My youngest though is our challenger, and she's like, oh, I'm gonna wait till you get to 3.5. And so I recognize that that's teaching her to disobey numerous times instead of obeying us the first time. And so we've had to really lay that down and say, we're not going to do that anymore. And teach them the biblical reasons of why the obedience is important. Recognize that how we do things and what we say are connected, and really cut that mentality of do as I say, not as I do. I know that was kind of like the verbiage we kind of grew up with, but it's almost backwards, and it doesn't necessarily make any sense, at least for not us, to teach our children that basically because I'm an adult, I can disobey and I can do wrong, but you cannot. And so we had to take a second and say, that's not okay. If we're telling them it's not okay for them to do, it's not okay for us to do either. And so, because we don't want them to believe that they can only not do this as a child, but then get away with it in the real world and in life and things like that. So that was one of the ways that we've had to change the way we do things. I grew up with spanking. My husband did not, to the fullest degree. And so that was also something that we've had to change and shift and recognize that spanking is, are we spanking because our child is having a problem or being a problem? Are we responding to our children out of anger because we're frustrated that they're not doing what we want them to do and having such control over our kids? And not that that means that I just am like, woo, go with whatever you want to do. There is rules in place. There is an authority that I have and my husband has over our kids. But it doesn't have to be built out of fear. And just having to really recognize that we're not trying to teach our children to be afraid of us. So discipline, definitely. We believe in it. We do course correction. We do call things out for what they are. And we have not necessarily family meetings, because I think we're always in communication in our home. So there isn't things are happening and then it's gotten too out of hand and then we conversate about it. I don't know. What do you do? What works for you guys when it comes to discipline? The next one for me that I was talking about, so we talk about chores. That I did go ahead and keep that in, and my husband did keep that in from what we grew up with. We think it's important. Our children have to understand that this is not just our space, but it's their space as well. They take ownership. So we call our home an owner. It's a 4-part ownership. It's me, my husband, and my kids, and our kids. And so we believe that everyone has their part. Now, when it comes to chores, I have main chores for them to do that is a daily thing. And then I have chores that they do that are like additional that they kind of help out with. And so, for instance, for our 7-year-old, she is required to get up every morning, make her bed, and make sure that she gets herself dressed and, tidy up a little bit. If it's not in the beginning of the day, then it's by the end of the day. Her room needs to be clean before the next following day. And so those chores I don't pay allowance to. Those are chores that are fundamental for her. I grew up the same way. My husband did too. We really love the idea of you making your bed, starting your day clean and fresh, and getting dressed for the day, and recognizing that when you have a clean space, you have some clarity. I think I noticed recognizing with my oldest very quickly that she gets very distracted by a lot of things happening around her when things are not in its place, or if she doesn't feel like she has space to breathe and move, and she gets just very confused and anxious. And then my youngest is just really growing into all of this. So she's watching what everyone's doing. And so, like I said, we do as we say. So me and my husband make our bed every day. And so, yes, I'm not saying that there's not days where we're like sick and no one's touched nothing. We have those days. We're human. But overall, on Monday through Friday, when we're in a school mode and it's our work week, we are making our beds every day. Now, additional chores. So for my oldest, I have her make sure that she pulls all the trash from all the areas in our home, and she bags them up and puts them with the large trash so daddy can take them out. And she also will clean the schoolroom space every day after class or after we're done for our lessons for the day. She will tidy up and put those things away. We all will sometimes come together as a team and clean up our livable, shareable space, which is where we are right now, where I'm sitting. And then we also include Josephine. Josephine loves being up in everything pretty much. So she's really enjoying washing dishes with daddy. That means that she gets to rinse the dishes and she's putting them away. Or she loves to go and help me separate the clothes on laundry day and put the clothes in the washer and dryer. And so we make this a family thing. I love that when I was growing up, my mother was very adamant that, she cleaned her room, I cleaned my room, and we shared the options of like who's washing dishes when I got older. And so I love that, growing up with a mom who was not just telling or being a dictator, but she was present and active with me, and I wanted to carry that on with my kids. Now, allowance. Wow. So this is something we're adding in slowly. I didn't grow up with allowance. My mom said, like, you have your job, I have my job. I'm not paying you to do your job. And I like that philosophy to some extent, but I'm also loving teaching my child responsibility to having her own money, and when she wants to buy something that's outside of when mommy and daddy get her something or any of those things. And so we are part of the Greenlight family. If you've ever heard of them, this again is not a sponsored video. This is just me talking to you about what I do. We signed up for Greenlight, which is like a child's bank account that you can operate and fund through an app. I'll link it all in the description below. I really enjoy it. It has her picture on her card. It's a real debit card, and I love it because I can pay her for chores, or I can pay her just because. I can set up a savings for her, and I can see when she uses her card. So if you have older kids, this might be really great for them if they don't already have a bank account, but you want to start them slow with $5, like what we do with Zoe. She gets $5 every 2 weeks, and that's to cover some of the additional things that she does. Like, she'll go out of her way and she will make sure to go and clean sister's side of the room even though she didn't need to. Like, she'll make her bed every day. She'll go and say, hey, I cleaned my bathroom, or I went and did extra things that are not necessarily required of her at this age. And so I just have that on rotation, and you can pause it at any time if you feel like your child needs to, they didn't do their chores this week, so you're going to pause them. So I really like that app. You should check it out. I really enjoy it. It's very seamless, very easy and simple to use, and I probably will do it with Josephine when she gets older as well. But allowance is earned. I do believe allowance is earned. I'm never going to pay my children for their grades. I'm never going to pay them to do their education or their assignments, or to clean their room. that I think that that's something that they're responsible for. Now, other things outside of that, I have no problem doing. We did the same thing, like when it was Zoe's birthday earlier this month. A lot of any money that came in from family, I was able to put it in her account. But we also could have this conversation of, okay, this is the money you have, and use it wisely. And so I think there's a great learning tool there. I want my children to understand wealth and money, and using their, not storing up their treasures in material things, but using it wisely. Teaching them about tithing and giving her 10% is important to me. And so, yes, that's what we've been doing with our kids. We are really just continuously growing and evolving in what works for our family. And so, yes, share with me. I want to know, what do you guys do for allowance? What do you do for chores? Do you have a list? Does everyone take part in the home? Or do you feel like they're just being kids and you kind of keep that separate for now? Share with me. I'd love to know. Leave those all in the comments below. Until next time, give this video a warm thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And until next time, you guys have a wonderful day. Bye.